Hi everyone. In the astrology groups that I'm in, I have been making posts and also commenting, oh god, about Saturn in Scorpio. And I figured I'd give everyone my own take on Saturn and Scorpio people from my own personal experiences with Saturn and Scorpio people. Um, Yeah, because I just feel that I mean, of course not all Saturn and Scorpio people are like this because there's aspects, there's houses, yada yada yada. Everybody's Saturn is different. So, I can't speak for all Saturn and Scorpio people. But I have dated a few. So, here we go. Here are some things about Saturn and Scorpio that I have noticed. Um I think because of their conditioning, and Saturn usually shows in a chart the kind of conditioning you have based on your childhood. Like, okay, your parents treated you this way, well, this is how you're going to feel for most of your life unless you try to change it and grow up and deal with your shit, you know? Um, People with Saturn and Scorpio, their conditioning is usually I've noticed this. Their family is very controlling in one way or another. Um, Sometimes it is like in a passive aggressive way. Sometimes it is like in a very aggressive way, like child abuse and all that. You know, like a lot of Saturn and Scorpio people I know were abused as children, and whether it's physical or verbal, they were definitely abused as children. And the thing about being abused as a child is you have a choice when you become an adult to not let that affect you anymore and rise above, like a Scorpio, Phoenix, Ashes, you know what I'm talking about. Um, or you can just be miserable and make everybody else around you miserable because you're miserable. You know what I'm saying? So some Saturn and Scorpio people, a lot of them are like, okay, well, I'm an adult now. I can't take all my childhood shit out on everybody else. So I'm going to move past it and I'm going to make it my goal to move past it. However, not all Saturn and Scorpio people can do that. And some are just so stuck in their ways, so stuck in their childhood conditioning, and it's a fixed sign. Scorpio is a fixed sign. So it's harder to have Saturn in a fixed sign, I think, because you can just get so stuck in your way of thinking and believe everything that you say is right and everything that you feel is right when in actuality it's not, and you're the one who needs to change, not everybody else. So, that's one thing I've noticed about Saturn and Scorpio people. Another one is you know how Virgo people, or any placement with Virgo, they're known for being nitpicky. Maybe Saturn in Virgo is known as nitpicky. Well, Saturn in Scorpio is I feel even more nitpicky than Saturn in Virgo. And I don't know why this is. It's weird. You would expect somebody with a lot of Virgo or a Saturn in Virgo to be nitpicky and annoying. But no. Actually, the most nitpicky people I've known have had Saturn in Scorpio. They are so hard on themselves to the point where they're hard on other people because they're so damn hard on themselves. And then this goes back to conditioning. Their conditioning was pretty tough, and they learned to be hard on themselves because their parents were hard on them. And then, in turn, they're also hard on other people. And it's just like, whoa, like, take your shit and go away, because I don't want to be a part of that negativity. Ugh. Sorry, I don't know. This video kind of sucks, but I'm gonna explain more about Saturn and Scorpio. So there is also a thing I've noticed about Saturn and Scorpio men, because I've dated some. Because like I'm a Saturn and Sagittarius, and I was born in '88. So I guess some people with Saturn and Scorpio are close to my age, because I have Saturn in very late Sagittarius, and well, I don't know if that makes any difference, but most guys I've dated have been close to my age, maybe like a few years age difference. So they have Saturn and Scorpio, of course, and Pluto and Scorpio. I don't know. Not a good combination. Okay, so anyways, here's another thing I've noticed about Saturn and Scorpio. And this is that it seems like they have a repressed sense of sexuality. Like they are not comfortable with their partners being very sexual people. And I don't know if this is because they're of their past conditioning, or also because Saturn and Scorpio. This would make Saturn Mars and Pluto ruled. Now, I'm just using modern rulerships. I don't know what people think about that, but at this point, I'm just explaining. Saturn and Scorpio, of course. Scorpio is ruled by Mars and also Pluto. So we have to keep in mind that Saturn is what we lack. Saturn is what we're lacking in our charts. Saturn is like what we want to be, but we can't, because Saturn is restriction, and Saturn likes to stop things that we want sometimes to make us struggle for it. So a lot of Saturn and Scorpio men that I have met are very uncomfortable with sexuality. I am a Scorpio ascendant, so I've learned to not be that way. And of course, my Saturn is not in Scorpio, thank God. But yeah. So for example, like I'm a very sexual person. I'll just admit it right now, and I'm comfortable with myself. These men are not comfortable with themselves. So they do a projecting thing, like they project their issues, or either that, or they don't want to have sex because they're like, oh, I'm not in the mood, you know. And that's like all the time sometimes with them. You could go months without having sexual relations with a Saturn and Scorpio man, because they are just not so comfortable with their sexuality. And yeah, so that's one thing about that. And it obviously, and please don't hate on this video because it's just an observation. Obviously not all Saturn and Scorpio people are like this. Some maybe have really high libidos. I don't know. I've never experienced that. But I'm pretty sure that some people can overcome their Saturn and Scorpio issues and become a better person because of it. The sign of Scorpio itself is mostly about death and rebirth and sexuality, as well as power, personal power. And I guess most people with Saturn and Scorpio have had to feel powerless at a young age, and learned how to repress that Pluto side to them, and keep quiet for the sake of not getting their asses kicked by their parents or something. That's just something I've thought about and seen myself. Either that, or they expect you, their partner, to be quiet about everything Pluto, everything that pisses you off, everything Pluto and Mars. They expect you to just keep quiet. And I've actually written about this in some of the groups, because I feel like people could relate to it, and they did. And one person just recently commented, yes, that she agrees with me that yes, Saturn and Scorpio people can be very domineering and nitpicky and just annoying. And yeah, so this is just my observations about the sign of Scorpio being in Saturn. Saturn is what we lack. Saturn is our conditioning. Saturn is where we need to overcome our obstacles to attain what we really want. So yeah, this is my Saturn and Scorpio video. Maybe I'll think of something else to say today. Yeah, have a good one, everyone.